What you focus upon expands. The principle of focused attention, as I call it, is one of the most fundamental laws of human perception. But this law has now become massively elevated in importance in the age of artificial intelligence. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. And it involves nothing less than how to avoid having your mind unconsciously colonized via the machines. Secondly, I'm going to explain how you can actually utilize this law to become what I call a master of the system via digital wisdom. Try this. Look up from your device for a moment and look around the room for 5 seconds. See if there's anything in the room that's red. What happened? Chances are, suddenly everything that's red or partially red would have expanded within your visual field. Now let's try the same thing for the color blue. Look up, look around. Same thing, right? Now let's try something a little different. Look around and bring your attention to anything that's disorderly or messy. Interesting. I don't know about you, but when I do that, I suddenly feel quite uneasy, as if something needs to be straightened out. So this law of perception works not just with physical qualities, but also abstract and moral qualities. If you walk down the street and I ask you to look for inequality, your visual field and the interpretive functions of your brain, most likely involving the prefrontal cortex, would begin to help you notice things that are unjust. Though, of course, what you interpret as injustice may vary according to your own life experience, education, and conditioning. So the idea of the principle of focused attention, as I call it, is pretty simple to understand and easy to verify for yourself, and I'm sure you get it. What you focus upon expands, often distorting our world in ways that is delimiting or just plain delusional. Say, the way a pumped-up gym junkie can't stop judging himself in the mirror because Daddy said he was skinny 20 years ago, no matter how huge he gets. What we see, or choose to see, becomes our narrative. And once the narrative is set, it's very difficult to pull the mind out of the story, for the story then determines what you focus upon, and what you focus upon expands. A self-perpetuating loop. A related principle of perception is the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, or the frequency illusion, as it's sometimes called. This occurs when a person experiences something, perhaps for the first time or in a way that makes it significant, and then suddenly notices it more frequently. Daniel Simons, a prominent psychologist known for his work on attention and perception, conducted various experiments that illustrate this illusion. One well-known study involved participants observing a video of a basketball game, during which they were tasked with counting passes made by players wearing white shirts. After focusing intently on this specific task, many participants failed to notice an unexpected event. Perhaps the best example was when a person in a gorilla suit walked through the players, and when later queried, many of the subjects in the study had no recollection of having seen the lingering primate. That's right, they didn't even see the gorilla in the room. Simon's research demonstrates the brain's filtering mechanisms and how our cognitive focus shapes our perceptions, expanding the subject of our attention, but often at the expense of other things around us. What we focus upon expands, as I've already said a couple of times, and what we do not focus upon diminishes and may effectively vanish. The frequency illusion has been well known for decades, but now I'd like to turn your attention to something that is occurring even in the modern age, that is exacerbating this tendency and possibly threatening our capacity for control over our own minds. To introduce this recent context, I'd like to share something that happened to me not too long ago and which really reinforced in my own mind why this principle has become so important in the modern age. So much so that the frequency illusion is now threatening the possible creation of desirable human futures, as well as the agency of individuals and even of organizations and society as a whole. I live in China, and basically the whole country runs via the WeChat app. I sometimes joke that if you want to take China down, just disable WeChat, because Just about everything happens here on WeChat. I can't even hail a ride or buy water without WeChat because I have to scan a code to buy stuff. Coins and Chinese renminbi notes are ancient history here. And so it was that just a few months ago that I discovered one function of the WeChat app is something called WeChat channels. Basically, WeChat channels is a bit like a TikTok or Instagram or one of those scrolling sites where you scroll down the screen to watch video after video. I've never frequented any of these kinds of apps, most because I'm too busy. But on this occasion, when I was perusing WeChat channels for the first time, I was drawn somehow to linger upon a video of a poor dog that was lost. Maybe I watched the video for 20 seconds or so, which is possibly a world record for focused attention on these kinds of apps. Then I kept scrolling down, and a few seconds later, I came across a video of a dog that was homeless and sick. And of course, I lingered on that for a few moments. Then I kept scrolling, and you guessed it, up popped another video of a poor dog. This time, it featured a poor dog that was chasing a cat near a busy road, and unfortunately, it chased the cat under a truck, and the dog was, well, squashed. It was horrific. I found it really upsetting to see a poor dog dying that way, because I'm quite empathetic by nature and sensitive to suffering. But I scrolled on, and soon I was being chain-fed videos of dogs and cats and various other animals getting squashed, mutilated, beaten to death, basically exterminated in every imaginable way. I might have been on the WeChat channels 5 or 10 minutes, but soon I'd had enough and clicked off the app. But over the next week or two, I did return to the app, thinking the machines might have forgotten who I am. But alas, it was not so. The machines had me pegged as a sensitive soul, or perhaps a psychopath who enjoys watching animals die. The same kinds of videos kept coming up again and again and again. There were a few other themes that kept repeating as well, of course. Now, I'm sure you're aware of why this was happening. It's called personalization. The algorithm had worked out what my attention is typically drawn to, at least in an online context. Therefore, the algorithm exploits the principle of focused attention. The interesting thing to observe was that I wasn't actually clicking on any videos nor liking any of them. I was just scrolling down the feed. The machines simply noticed the spaces where I was lingering, recorded that data, and inserted that into their code. And on apps like WeChat channels, the scrolling process is so fast, just a few seconds from one video to the next. The pace of this categorization process was very noticeable. The personalization of your feed may not be as noticeable on platforms like YouTube or perhaps even Facebook, but that's exactly what the algorithm is doing there too. And the reason is so that they can decide which kinds of products and services to advertise to you in order to optimize advertising revenue. That's how these platforms make a profit, as I'm sure you know. Remember the ancient maxim: what you focus upon expands. And on WeChat channels, what I focused on was expanding and expanding and expanding. And unfortunately, in this case, what was being expanded was suffering and annihilation of innocent animals. What should we make of this? Actually, it's a very important lesson for everyone. The fact that the algorithm is invisible and people may not be conscious of its machinations mirrors the way the mind functions for people who aren't conscious of the frequency illusion. And that's most of us. After we develop a narrative or belief structure about the world, our mind will then tend to draw in information and experience that affirms the narrative. Cognitive dissonance then occurs as information is relegated by the mind because it does not fit our self-told story. But in the modern age, much of our perpetual field is mediated by our devices. And what we're seeing on our devices is increasingly manipulated by big tech and other bad faith online actors. It may only be a matter of seconds before opening a web page before our big tech overlords have us pinned as conservatives or liberals, male or female, old or young, and then determining what we should be exposed to according to some stereotyped representation of those categories. And suddenly, we're no longer entirely ourselves. We've become the possessed. So, what are we to do about this development? How do we get our minds back? Our souls back? There are a few very simple actions that you can take. Begin every day with device-free time. Preferably going e-free till lunchtime if possible, and avoiding these technologies for at least an hour or two before going to bed. Go incognito. You can do that on the YouTube mobile app, for example, or use private browsing mode. Click Not Interested or See Less of This on X and such platforms. And then there's something else you can do. Develop what I call digital wisdom, which goes far beyond the idea of digital literacy. Digital wisdom has three domains. First, there's know thyself, developing a conscious understanding of how the mind works. This is the realm of introspection and mindfulness, being able to slow down and witness your own mind. Noticing what's going on within yourself, within your body, your psyche, your spirit. The lessons and meditations in my upcoming Power and Presence course on mindfutures.com are designed to assist with this precise problem. The second domain of digital wisdom is know the humans, understanding essential human biology and human cultures, how people get along with each other, how they tend to behave in relationship to each other as individuals and as groups. And I'd include the frequency illusion, understanding what we focus upon expands. And after we have an essential competence of these first two domains of digital wisdom, only then can we truly become digitally literate. And this is the third domain of digital wisdom. Know the machines. Because you can't be empowered to master technology if you don't have a competent level of self-awareness or understanding of human beings. So, knowing the machines includes things like understanding the relationship of technologies to well-being, such as how use of social media can exacerbate anxiety and depression, especially in young girls. I would also include a basic understanding of how the algorithm functions, including how it exploits the principle of focused attention. And then I would include Shoshana Zuboff's concept of surveillance capitalism, how your digital platforms are gathering data on you, manipulating you to optimize their own profits. I could mention many other important concepts that I believe we should learn under each of these three domains of digital wisdom, but I think that is enough to give you the essential idea. The principle of focused attention is a good example of how all three domains of digital wisdom can work together to enhance human empowerment in the digital age. Self-awareness, understanding our bodies, and knowing how the algorithm functions are all necessary to maintain a strong level of personal agency in the age of machines. One of my main aims with this channel, the book Power and Presence, and my online course is to share the truth that it's essential that we do our self-work in the digital age, or we're going to get eaten up by the machines. Not unlike in the movie The Matrix, where the machines feed off us to power themselves. I hope you're paying attention. Focused attention. I'm Marcus T. Anthony. See you again soon in the futures.